Finn. Finn.
It's all right. Go ahead and come forward, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Please have a seat. We'll get back on the record. The defendant's president of counsel. I'm told that the jury is here. Let's have it, please.
All jury present, Your Honor.
The jury is back and seated. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, we are continuing with the trial of the state versus Mr. Brown, and I do hope that you all had a pleasant evening last night. At the time, we are still in the state's case in chief, so solicitor, call your next witness, please.
Thank you. The state calls Jeff Crooks.
Someone for her affirm that the testimony about to give in this case is true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, ma'am. Morning, Agent Crooks.
Morning.
You work in Columbia?
Yes, sir.
Columbia.
Yes, sir. I'm a lieutenant with the South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, commonly referred to as SLED.
And Lieutenant Crooks, currently, you were not in the crime scene formally. Well, what do you do now?
Yes, sir. Currently, I'm the supervisor of the latent print department. Prior to that, the latent print and crime scene department was one department, and I supervised that department.
So, back in 2011, July of 2011, you were supervising the crime scene and latent print unit at SLED for the whole state.
Yes, sir, I was.
And how long have you been in law enforcement?
23 years.
All right, has all of that been at SLED? Or
No, sir. Approximately 19 years was at SLED, and of those 19 years, approximately 12 years was crime scene investigation.
okay, where did you start out?
I started as a deputy sheriff at the Lexington County Sheriff's Department on uniform patrol, and I worked there for approximately 4 years.
back in 2011, July 13th, you're called out in your role as crime scene supervisor to assist the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office as seen in Clinton. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was down at Barrel State Road.
Yes, sir.
About what time did you arrive on the scene, and what was the situation? Can you tell the jury what the situation was when you arrived?
May I refer to my notes? We were notified at approximately 12:38 a.m. in regards to what was described to us as an officer-involved shooting. And we arrived at the scene. I arrived at the scene approximately 1 a.m. The other two agents, Agent Hardy and Agent Prince, arrived at the scene approximately 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so you got there first, and then Agents Hardy and Prince arrived after a couple hours later.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And when you get there about 1 in the morning, Lieutenant Crooks, is the scene at that point already taken off and I guess by local law enforcement?
Yes, sir, it had been secured. When I arrived, there was multiple law enforcement officers present, both with the sheriff's office as well as some of our field agents were present. And the road had been blocked off, and the property that the residence was on had been secured by police officers.
Okay, and what's the first thing you do when you come onto a crime scene like this that's already been secured? Who are you talking to first?
Well, the first thing I want to do is try to get a better understanding of what the investigators believe they have. We get basic information over the phone in order to determine, what assets we need to bring with us regarding manpower or equipment. But then we like to meet up with the case investigators to get a little more detail on what exactly they believe took place. After we do that, we do what we call a walkthrough, or what we call a walkthrough, where we do a walkthrough of the scene, trying to assess what the scene consists of, try to get an idea of what we're going to have to do, and try to develop some sort of a game plan as to how we're going to process the scene.
Okay, and what was your game plan that night? Is it to work kind of from the middle out or from the perimeter back in?
Well, no, sir. When we document, our primary objective is to locate, document, and collect evidence. The first thing we do is we try to document everything we observe. We start with what we call general photography. We're taking pictures. Basically, we start from the outside and work our way in from general documentation of the overall scene, working in towards eventually documenting individual items of evidence and collecting those items of evidence.
Okay, and were you and your agents that arrived later able to mark everything that you found of interest in that area? You marked them with a little yellow.
Yes, sir. We have what we call evidence markers. They have either numbers or letters on them, depending on which ones you're going to use. And basically what that does, allows us to, when we locate evidence, allows us to mark that evidence, so when we photograph it, it helps see where that evidence is in the photographs, particularly with general and mid-range photographs. If it's small items of evidence, you really can't see it. So these markers help give you a better perspective of where the items of evidence are in the overall scene. We also use those same numbers to document on sketches. When we draw sketches of the crime scenes, it helps get an idea of where that evidence was in that crime scene on the sketch.
Okay, so for example, and this is States 76, then we're looking at here, the little circles with the numbers in them correlate back to the numbers of the markers.
Yes, sir. The photographs that are taken work in conjunction with the sketch to try to paint an overall picture of the crime scene.
Number 3 now to the states is 21 through 30. We can pull those up. Start at 21. I'm going to hand you the small copies of the pictures. You can also put them up on the screen for the jury. All right, Agent Crooks, if you could, these pictures already have been marked and entered into evidence, but I'd like you to explain to the jury what you're looking at. And these are the nighttime pictures that are taken when it's still dark.
Yes, sir. When I first got there, I focused on trying to take care of the overall photography that needed to be done as I was waiting for the other agents to arrive, and that's what these photographs are. Most of these are general photographs showing, mostly taken from the perimeter of the crime scene, and showing it's general photographs and also what we call mid-range photographs of certain areas of this crime scene.
Okay, we're going to start with number 21. If you could start by telling us what we're looking at the state's court.
This is a Clinton Public Safety police vehicle that was parked in front of the residence on the roadway, the main roadway in front of the residence.
Okay, 22.
This is the same vehicle depicting a bullet-resistant vest on the hood of the same vehicle.
Okay, and had you received any information at that point on who was driving this vehicle? Did you get an identification of, or if that person was involved in the shooting?
I don't recall if I got the specific name, but I did know it was a Clinton PD vehicle or DPS vehicle, and I was told that the officer that responded in that vehicle was involved in the shooting and had actually fired one of his issued weapons during the shooting from the location of his vehicle.
Okay. All right, 23.
This is a photograph of the residence where the incident took place from the highway looking towards the house.
Okay, 24.
This is another picture of the residence from the roadway area. It depicts a Lawrence County marked police car, as well as a dark in color pickup truck that was also a police vehicle for Lawrence County Sheriff's Office.
And it appears as if there's a street light in this picture. Was that light on when you arrived?
To my recollection, it was.
Now, the vehicles in this picture, the truck and the car, did you receive any information talking to investigators on the scene on who those cars belong to?
The Ford F-150 belonged to Lieutenant Plaxico with the Sheriff's Office, and without referring to my notes, I believe the marked unit belonged to Deputy Rice. There was also, on the other side of the marked vehicle, there was also a white unmarked police car that was parked on the driveway leading down the side of the residence that went towards another residence next door.
Okay, 25. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes, sir. This is the driveway that was, if you're facing the residence where the shooting took place, this would be to the right, and the white vehicle in the background is the white Crown Victoria that was a police vehicle, and another smaller white vehicle, which I was told belonged to a family member that was present when the incident took place. And when the shooting incident started and people started to run, they stuck their car on the embankment there.
It's stuck in the
Yes, sir. looked like it bottomed out.
26.
This is a photograph of the White Crown Victoria standing in the same driveway, but actually looking back towards Barrel Stave Road, back towards the main highway. And there are markers present in that photograph of items that were documented.
Okay, there was, I believe, some blood there, some police equipment there that was marked.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And had you been told at that point that Deputy Rice was pulled over to that location?
Yes, sir. We were told that when the shooting event took place, he ran in the direction of his vehicle and eventually was laying at the location where near on that side of the vehicle where a large amount of blood was observed on the ground, and that's where he was after, or that's where he went after he was shot.
Okay, States 28.
Yes, sir. This is more of a mid-range photograph. It's a little bit closer up than the general photograph of the black pickup truck belonging to Lieutenant Plaxico, and markers are present where we had observed some cartridge cases.
Okay, so at this point, you had already, the picture we saw of the truck before was an early picture. Now you've been able to mark some of the items.
Yes, sir. Typically, once we've done our general photograph depicting the crime scene as it is, then we'll introduce the markers into the scene to depict specific items of evidence, and that's what has taken place here. We've marked some of the casings that we've observed. And typically, particularly when it comes to firearms evidence, we tend to put a marker there as soon as we observe it because they tend to be small, particularly when it's outside. So we'll mark those items as soon as we observe them.
And I believe that's at 12 and 15. These items here were, and you can refer to your notes, they're shell casings, correct?
Yes, sir. And the numbers on the markers don't always correlate to the item number that we assign the evidence when we bring it back to the lab and log it in. Sometimes it does. It just depends on the order in which they're logged in, but the numbers do correspond to the numbers in the sketches.
Okay, so the sketches where we had the markers that we looked at before.
Yes, sir.
Go to that in a few minutes.
Yes, sir.
They correlate with these markers. Now, let's go to States 29. Tell the jury what we're seeing.
This is a photograph of the front door area of the residence. The storm door is in the closed position. The wooden door behind it is in the open position, and you can partially see into the living room area.
Okay, and I believe there was some blood spots that right in front of the door as well.
Yes, sir, as well as shattered glass. And it appeared that from the clothing and items we observed just off of the front rails that it was also where someone may have been treated by EMS. There was some clothing and those type things located right there as well.
A pair of boots and
Yes, sir.
shirt. 30.
This is a photograph of the same front door area. If you're standing in front of the house, you're more to the left of the door, depicting the same area from a different angle.
30.
These are mid-range photographs of some of the cartridge casings we observed near Lieutenant Plaxico's vehicle, the black pickup truck. This is a photograph taken of the front area, of the front yard area, as well as the front of the residence. By now, when this picture was taken, it was daylight. We were at the scene until approximately around 4:30 that afternoon. So some of these pictures were taken throughout that time frame, which is why these pictures are in daylight.
Okay. Could Mr. Bentley go to States 8? while he's pulling that up, Lieutenant Brooks, you have a camera that's called a PanoScan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you utilize that?
Yes, sir, I did.
We're going to pull that up, and if you could, while Mr. Bennett was pulling that up, could you explain to the jury what this does? It takes a self-explanatory, it takes a panoramic view of.
Yes, sir. Basically, it's a digital camera that's able to take a panorama image of whatever we choose to photograph. It also comes with software that allows us to connect the ends of that panoramic photograph. The end result is it creates a 360-degree view of what you're documenting. It appears as if you're standing at the location. You can look around. You can zoom in. You can zoom out. You can gain perspective that standard photographs cannot provide because you can only look at a certain area per photograph.
Okay, Your Honor, permission for Lieutenant Brooks to step down and demonstrate that.
Sure.
Lieutenant Brooks, just keep your voice up for the jury and court reporter. This is a touch screen that can move around.
Yes, sir. Basically, the camera set up on a tripod, and whatever location we put it at, it will rotate on that tripod in a 360-degree scan. So basically, we end up with a photograph 360 degrees of the area. Then through the software that comes with the system, we're able to what we call seam the ends together. What that allows us to do is create this image where you can look around within the scene. That's actually my vehicle right there. And you can also zoom in if you need to. It's just another level of documentation that allows us to provide more perspective to the crime scene that we're working. If you notice right here where the tape, this is the crime scene tape, the reason it looks like that is because any movement that occurs during the scan, it's going to catch that movement and it ends up looking like this, which is why when we do these scans, we try to make sure nobody's standing anywhere near, because if somebody's standing there moving, it's going to make them look kind of strange. But that's what this is right here with the tape. It looks like that, but that's pretty much the scene right there from the highway. That's the perspective.
Okay, and the benefit of this is you also get this little three-dimensional in the sense that you get slopes, you get perspective.
It allows you to see perspective between multiple objects, and a lot of times it's hard to capture that with standard photography. You still have the same issue with sometimes with still photography. You lose depth perception as far as distances of two items between each other, which is why we take measurements. But what it does is it allows us to document at a higher level than just standard photographs.
Okay, when you take the panel scan here, we see some of the yellow evidence markers out. At that point, did you have all the markers out that you were going to have?
I don't recall if we had all the markers out because we were steady finding evidence as we worked the scene, particularly with some of the firearms evidence near the front door. So I'm not exactly sure at this point how much we found compared to the actual sketch. I have to compare the markers to what's actually in the final sketch.
Okay, this could have been earlier in the day.
Yes, sir. Right. Well, the big thing with this is it helps to do it in daylight because the camera, even though it captures a panoramic image, it can only see as far as the lighting allows it. Even though we have lighting that comes with the system, it's only going to reach out about as much as a normal flash, so it's a lot better to do it in daylight where you have natural light to allow you to see.
Okay, so you still had vehicles there at the crime scene, some of the ones we saw from the pictures and not.
That's correct. The scene had not been released. We were still actively working the scene, but we were at a point where the lighting allowed us to go ahead and make these.
And it appears that all the cars that were there when you got there and started taking pictures are still there.
Yes, sir. None of the cars had been moved, at least from the point I got there to the time this was taken.
Before you got there, probably.
That's correct.
One of them.
That's right.
All right, just if we can point a couple more things out before we get back to the stand. This is a street light here. That's the one we saw in the
Yes,
picture
sir.
before.
Yes, sir.
It's engaged at night.
Yes,
Is that correct? Or was it still
Yes, sir.
burning?
No, sir. It wasn't on when this was taken. It typically turn off.
It's on some kind of automatic.
Yes, sir.
And this appears to be taken the morning after, when the daylight comes up, sometime after.
Yes, sir. And it was taken while we were still working the scene.
And you still work the scene throughout the morning part of the day.
Yes, sir. Until the late afternoon. Yes, sir.
You can have a seat. Lieutenant Brooks, I'm going to go back to 31 forward on the pictures. I'm going to hand them to you so you have them up here with you. Actually, let me keep those. That way I can keep the numbers straight. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. I can.
All right. States 31, you've already described. That's a kind of picture, similar perspective, correct, from the night before, but just during the daylight hours?
Yes, sir. The only change would be the markers that we added to the yard.
Okay. States 32.
That's another photograph of the front yard area, showing the front door of the residence.
33.
That is a close-up image, what we call a close-up photograph of one of the body cameras that we observed, and we were advised that the sheriff's office deputies, or at least some of them, had body cameras issued to them. So we were actively looking. Because as I recall, we were told that when we received Officer Rice's equipment from one of the supervisors later that day, his camera was not with that equipment. So we were looking for any signs that maybe his camera might have fallen off during the incident.
Okay.
So we were actively looking for body cameras.
All right. It states 28 is what you marked as victim camera from Brown. So you believe this to be the one that Rocky Rice is an issue?
Well, we were under that impression. I mean, I think we referred to it more in the layman's terms that it was a deputy's body camera, but I don't know if it was ever identified with a particular officer or not. I do know that we turned them over to one of the SLED agents for follow-up versus bring it back with us.
Okay. States 34.
That's what we call a mid-range photograph, and it depicts a belt clip and another body camera.
Okay, and just before we move on from the body cameras, to your knowledge, did we have any body camera footage from the victim?
I'm not aware of there being any, and it's my understanding that I don't think they were working properly, but if there is any, I'm not aware of it.
States 35.
That is a photograph of the Clinton DPS marked unit that was parked on Barrel Stave Road, directly in line with the front door of the residence. From the perspective, if you're standing in the yard looking back towards Barrel Stave Road.
Okay, you were able to collect 7 shell casings. It appears were marked in this picture.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Those were cartridge casings, fired cartridge casings from It looked like an assault rifle.
And they all were the same caliber?
Yes, sir. They all had the. It appears they all had the same head stamp, looked like same caliber, or at least they were all the same size.
Collected those,
Yes, sir.
submitted to the lab for now?
Yes, sir. We did.
And what was the caliber of those cases?
I believe it was 5.56 millimeter.
States 36.
That is a cartridge casing that was located up against the foundation of the residence near the door. The brick there is actually the brick foundation of the residence. And it was, if you're standing in front of the house looking at the front door, it would have been to the left of the stairs on the ground, back behind the shrubs and plants that were along the front of the house.
So if someone had been shooting out from the front of the house and the gun ejects to the right, that would have been consistent with someone shooting out the front of the house?
Yes, sir. I would expect it to kick out to the right unless it hits something and bounce another direction.
Okay. And what was the caliber of that?
I do not know.
Just based on
The-
crime scene legend.
I believe the head stamp said it was a 357.
States 37.
That's a mid-range photograph of the front door of the residence, with several markers included. The broken glass can be observed, and there's some blood there on the front stoop.
Okay. And 23 is a blood spot, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's a blood spot.
Okay. 24 is a blue flip phone.
Yes, sir. It was a Samsung blue and color flip phone.
Right. And 26 and 27, you have to tell the jury what you want. That firearm number?
Yes, sir. 26 was a 357 cartridge casing. 27 was blood observed on the floor.
States 38. And this is just a closer up of the shell 357 shell casing right on the inside of the
Yes, sir. That's what we refer to as a close-up photograph, where you can actually, we do that so you can actually see the actual item of evidence along with the marker number present in the image. And also on the floor is broken glass from the storm door that was in front of the wooden door. There was a full glass storm door along with the wooden door there at the front.
39.
That photograph is from the living room, from the back end of the living room, close to where the hallway door was, looking back towards Barrel Stave Road. The wooden door is open. There was blood observed in the chair closest to the bottom of the photograph, and the Clinton Department of Public Safety office vehicle can be seen on Barrel Stave Road in the background behind the tree. Also, you can, towards the top of the door, you can see a metal overhang that hung over the front door area. It was also depicted in some of those photographs.
Looks like a little awning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
40.
That's a photograph of the living room area from the perspective closer to, if you were standing near the front door area looking back towards the living room with your back to the front yard.
Okay, and 41.
That is a photograph of a handgun we observed on the floor in the living room over near the corner of the living room.
Okay, you were able to collect that?
Yes, sir, we did collect that gun and submit it to the lab.
I believe that. Just for the record, States 86. This is the same. Depicted in States 41.
Yes, sir, that is it.
And this is the clip out of the gun. I believe there were 3 unfired bullets from the weapon.
Yes, sir.
And you submitted that to your lab for further analysis?
Yes, sir, we submitted to the, we submitted it for examination, yes, sir.
States 42.
That is that's a photograph of the area just to the left of the front door, to the left of the front stoop, depicting markers 25 and 32.
32, let's go to States 43. That's a closer up at 32.
Yes, sir, it was a cartridge casing, 357 cartridge casing.
States 44. This is just a picture of the same gun we saw before.
Yes, sir, the one we've already talked about with marker 33 next to it, the handgun that was observed in the living room in the corner.
Okay. Let's go States 45.
That is a photograph shot from the area of Barrow State Road towards the incident location residence. It's actually a driveway that runs to the side of the property, a gravel driveway, and there's 2 evidence markers, 34 and 35, that have been placed there.
Okay, go to 46.
That is a photograph of one of the 2, 34 and 35 are both unfired cartridges, 7.65 millimeter unfired cartridges that were observed in that driveway area.
Okay, those 2 were the same caliber, 7.65 millimeter.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they were clearly unfired.
Yes, sir. They were not fired.
Maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves, but were there any other casings or unfired bullets consistent with this type of bullet found anywhere else on the property?
I'm not aware of any of the casings that we collected being associated with that caliber of gun. Every casing that we collected, it is my understanding, based on the firearms examination, all the fired cartridge casings came back to police officer weapons.
Okay. Or the one that was collected from
Or the gun that was, yes, sir, the gun that was collected from the living room.
So there were no empty casings or fired empty casings that were consistent with this anywhere else on the property?
No, sir, we did not find any, no, sir.
States 48.
It's a close-up photograph of marker 34 showing the other unfired cartridge.
Okay. 48. Well, this is marker 36. Is this back up by the house?
Yes, sir, that is on the front stoop, I call it, the front stoop right at the doorway. And the broken glass is observed throughout the front stoop as well.
Okay, and that's 36 was another July of ejected casing from a 357.
Yes, sir.
Close to the area where you were informed that Mr. Brown came out to do a shoot, right?
Yes, sir. That's what we were told at the scene, is that he opened the front door and came out and fired shots towards a crowd that had gathered in the front yard.
Space 49.
This is a photograph of the side of the incident location residence. Depicted in the photograph is the side as well as the back of the residence.
50.
This is a photograph of the back of the residence of the incident location.
Okay, there's 3 vehicles there depicted that look like those aren't associated with any law enforcement or anything else.
No, sir. It was under our understanding that those were victims that belonged in the residence.
And then the red Suburban, burgundy Suburban carport identified as Mr. Brown vehicle.
That's my understanding. That's what I was told. Yes, sir.
But y'all also processed those vehicles while you were on the scene.
We went through them, we searched them, and we photographed them. The only thing of interest that we noted was we did observe a empty holster in the red vehicle, and it was photographed.
So the holster in the red Suburban, but there was not going to be relevance or interest that y'all could tell anybody.
We didn't find any other weapons. We didn't see any fired or unfired ammunition, anything of that sort. We did photograph the vehicles, though.
Space 51.
That is a mid-range photograph of the front door and front wall of the residence. And there's a hole in the brick that we had put a evidence marker letter A above.
Okay. Did you find a bullet inside of the brick there at all, or anything that was intact?
We looked in the hole to see if we could see anything. I couldn't see anything other than pieces of brick. I wasn't able to locate or recover. I wasn't able to recover a bullet.
52.
That is a photograph again of the front door area, and the white portion that is marked with the letter B is actually the metal frame of the glass storm door that was there at the front door, and the door's in the closed position in that photograph.
53.
That is a photograph of the same storm door. It's just the other side, the hinge side, and a hole observed in that door had been marked with the letter C.
Okay, it's a little bit larger than the one in 52, correct? It looked like marker B of a smaller hole.
It may have been. I didn't necessarily measure the photographs. I'd have to look at them close up the scale to determine the actual size.
54.
That is another hole observed at the bottom of the storm door, and it was marked with the letter D. The door's in the closed position. It actually looked like a brass kick plate that was attached to the door. And that particular hole looked a little more oblong or oval shape than the other ones, which led me to believe it might have been a bullet impact from a sharper angle than some of the earlier holes like B and C, as far as sharper angle from the actual door, instead of straight on being more at an angle.
Side angle or?
Yes, sir, like from over towards the side of the residence. And it appeared to be fairly consistent to me with the direction from which Lieutenant Plaxico had been firing shots.
He's fired in 357 over by his truck.
Yes, sir. He's got a handgun, and the Clinton Department of Public Safety officer had a long rifle.
Assault rifle.
Yes, sir.
So it's 56. Of course, that's 55. That's where Lieutenant Plaxton's truck had been parked, correct? Maybe this is another.
Yes, sir. That's in that. It's in that area. It may have actually been underneath the vehicle. There were a couple of casings that we observed once we were able to get some of the vehicles moved that were difficult to see, and that one was under his vehicle.
Okay. So where the markers 13 through 18, there were 357 shells by his truck. This was consistent with that. Once the truck moved, it was found underneath it. Is that right?
I believe 17 was actually in the bed of his truck. Marker 17 was a casing found in the bed of his truck, and 12 may have actually been found on the truck as well. I'd have to look at the photograph.
Okay. Let's go to 56. Okay, you can refer to your notes. Where was this hole?
That was that was a bullet hole observed that was labeled marker F. That was also located. It was located above the front door, in the space between the door and where the roof line would have started, and was underneath the awning that came over the front door.
57.
E was a hole that we observed under the kind of in the same location, under that awning near the front door. To the right, there was a light like a front porch light, and it was in that general area closer to the front porch light. We initially photographed it, thinking it might have been some sort of bullet defect, but upon further inspecting the awning, we observed two holes that correlated with two other bullet holes, and in order for that to be a bullet hole, there would have had to been a third bullet hole in the awning, and there wasn't one. So it was my belief that was actually just a defect in the grout and or in the mortar, and not necessarily a bullet hole.
In fact, it doesn't seem to. Another reason for that, I believe, it doesn't knock any brick off.
Well, with bullet holes, particularly with brick, we expect to see a lot of impact damage. As seen earlier in the bullet hole marked A, that's typically what I expect to see, the type of damage I expect to see in brick. Brick, it's a pretty violent event when a bullet hits brick, and typically it's not going to be a clean impact. It's gonna there's going to be a lot of brick damage in addition to the hole, and particularly if it's going to hit the mortar between the bricks.
Okay.
Plus the fact there wasn't a hole. In order for that to be a bullet hole, there would have had to have been damage to that brick, and there also I would have expected, due to the height of where that bullet hole would have had to have been a hole in the awning as well. That's a photograph of the wall area to the left of the front door. There was a set of double windows to the left of the front door, and we observed what we believe could possibly be. We believe there were bullet defects, particularly I and H. Was probably more likely a ricochet. And G was a hole in the siding that appeared that it could have been a bullet impact.
Okay, when you say ricochet, would that be more likely a bullet coming in from an angle and hitting brick?
Based on the damage to the brick, that was my impression when I was working the scene. Is it looked like it was more of glancing shots on the brick. And my belief was those rounds probably came from the direction where Lieutenant Plaxico was shooting. There is no hole, particularly for I and H, there is no hole. So it's possible that it could have been from something else caused that damage, but in my experience, my crime scene experience, that's typically what bullet impact ricochets on brick look like.
Bullet impact that are more.
Right, which is why we documented it.
And G is actually, if we can go to states, state 61. G would be that, what was in the little saw before, picture before, but it's a little closer up than that.
Yes, sir. That particular hole, when I looked at it, because of what took place, and the way the irregularity of the hole, I would expect it I would expect the hole to look a little larger than that, but because of the oddness of it, I believe it could have been a bullet hole, so we went ahead and documented it as letter G. Because it definitely could have been caused either by a bullet or a bullet fragment.
Okay. Again, appears to have coming in from the right side, possibly. Looks like more of an angle.
Yes, so that was a little more difficult to determine any kind of angle because it's actually a hole that goes in, and typically we prefer, if we're going to determine trajectory of actual holes, we prefer to have more than one hole. The marks in the brick could be ricochet marks, and that's what I suspect it to be, but I can't say for a fact those are definitely bullet ricochets conclusively, but based on my experience, that's what they look like, and that's why I figured this hole probably more than likely was a bullet hole.
Okay, 38. I'm sorry, state 62, but the picture marker 38. What is this? Lieutenant Crook?
That is a photograph of the front of the residence to the right of the door. There were some bushes along that side of the house, and marker 38 behind that bush is depicted.
Okay, just based on those, what was state's 38?
It was also a 357 cartridge casing.
Okay. Winchester brand casing.
Yes, sir. That's what. Yes, sir.
Go to states 63.
That depicts a marker 39. That's in the living room area of the house near the door. It depicts what I believe to be a bullet fragment. And when we actually first observed it, it was the way the door was positioned. It was directly underneath the bottom of the door. This photograph depicts what the bullet looked like once we moved the door out of the way in order to photograph it.
And based on your notes, you did collect this, obviously. Submitted.
Yes, sir. We collected and we submitted it for firearms examination. Yes, sir.
And it appears to be a fire round projectile that was hit something and smashed.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like to me. Yes, sir. That's typically what they look like.
All right, well, let's go to state 67. Skip ahead to 67. Okay, what is it, 67?
That is a box, an ammunition box that was observed in one of the bedrooms of the residence and was photographed. It's Winchester brand ammunition.
Okay, 68.
That is a photograph of the same box ammunition with the ammunition holder pulled out, depicting several unfired cartridges still in the box.
Okay, these unfired cartridges, are they consistent? Brand, caliber, a lot of the casings kind of around the door?
Yes, sir. That's my understanding. It was.
Okay, consistent with the gun, states 86 that I showed you a moment ago, the 357 pistol?
Consistent in caliber size, yes, sir. That's my understanding.
State 69. Go back.
That is a photograph of the front door area of the residence and the front step, and there's a dowel rod that was placed in the hole that was observed in the brass kick plate towards the bottom of the storm door, because there was also an additional mark in one of the balusters that I was trying to see if it was possible that both holes could have been created by the same bullet.
Yeah, when you say dowel rod, just a long
It's just a wooden stick. Yep, and it helps us when we're trying to determine bullet paths. It can help us a little bit, but clearly this one wasn't long enough. But it gave me some idea of what it looked like the path may have been going.
This is a little bit closer up. Basically put that through the hole just to try to get some idea of
Yes, sir, and that's very much an approximation when you're trying to determine trajectories. It's definitely something we consider. Anytime we do that, we definitely consider it an approximation.
All right, and that would be because if it hits metal, it might leave a bigger hole than you have the bullet put a skinnier rod through it. It may not be
Correct, and even when we have 2 or more holes that we can use, it's still an approximation, because when a bullet hits something, it could very easily change its path. So that's why when we're trying to determine these trajectories, it's an approximation. We understand that when bullets hit things, they can start to tumble. Instead of spinning and going straight like bullets normally do out of the barrel, hit something, it could change its path, it could change its angle, it can start tumbling. Compare passing a football to kicking a football. Same kind of behavior. So, when we're trying to determine trajectories, is when we're trying to figure out, okay, if we got X number of holes, how many of these were caused by separate bullets and how many of them could have been caused by the same bullet. And also sometimes trying to get a general idea of maybe a direction that of the path the bullet took, if we're trying to get an idea of where maybe a shooter might have been standing.
Okay, so it gives you a general approximation of maybe where the person is standing, but it's not an exact science.
It's not going to give you a precise location, and I know me personally, most of what I use it for is to try to determine where to look for additional evidence. Like if I'm trying to figure out where somebody's shooting, where I need to look for cartridge casings or additional evidence. And sometimes with actual bullet holes, we can tell, depending on how well the hole is, sometimes along with additional signs, we can determine which direction the bullet was going. But as far as the trajectory, and particularly with this scene, 2 of the officers that were involved that were shooting are telling us where they were, and we're looking at the evidence to determine if the evidence lines up, is consistent with the locations they claim they were shooting from. And that's basically what I was doing there with that particular hole, was trying to figure out, was this a straight-on shot or was this an angle shot, and did it cause more than one hole? Because you can see in the photograph at the first baluster to the right of the post, there's a little nick in that baluster, and I was trying to determine if that could all have been the same event or 2 separate events.
And this appears to have been coming from the angle.
Yes, sir. There's actually that bullet went through and through, and there's actually a ricochet mark in the frame of not in the door itself, but the door frame, wood. So it looked like the bullet went straight through and hit that frame and bounced into the living room.
State 70.
That's a photograph, again, of the same side, the right side of the front step. And we marked two defects we observed as U and T. It appeared like it could have been ricochet marks from bullets.
Okay. Didn't find any projectiles in the brick, though, associated with those?
No, sir. Those were not through and through holes. There was quite a few marks like that we observed and documented that we felt like were most likely ricochets.
All right. State 71.
That is a photograph of the right side of the same front door and stoop area, indicating a marker 38 and a marker 40.
That's 72. This is closer up of 40.
Yes, sir. Those markers were depicting cartridge cases that were observed on the ground just to the right of the step.
Okay. Those again were consistent with the ammunition found in the house.
Yes, sir.
State 73.
That's another photograph of the front door area. To the left of the front door is the hole, again marked as A.
Okay, you mentioned earlier bullet hits masonry or brick head on. This is the type of impact you would expect to see.
Based on my experience, that's what I expect to see, and when I see that, I associate that with bullet damage. It's not a clean hole. It's not a perfect hole. It's very jagged, and then around the hole, leading outward, instead of a clean hole, it's kind of concave. It goes in towards the hole, and there's actually debris that can be seen inside the hole.
Okay. And with A again, did you find any kind of projectile inside?
No, sir, we did not recover anything out of that hole.
Is it possible when a projectile hits something hard like brick, it actually disintegrates?
Yes, sir, that does happen.
And again, if you saw a hole that was perfectly round and clean in brick, you would expect that to be a bullet hole like you see here.
I would not, no, sir. Typically, bullet holes that I've seen in my experience, when there's bullet holes in brick, that's what they look like.
All right, pull up state 76, please. I wanted to refer you back to markers that you put on the sketch here, vehicles that you've seen in the pictures. Just to verify this, that starting up here from this way around, clockwise would be U2 would be Lieutenant Robinson, White Crown Victoria.
We were not given the name of the officer that drove that vehicle, but it was that is the White Crown Victoria. Yes, sir.
R2 is the Impala white vehicle that we saw stuck in the ditch and ticket.
Yes, sir. That is that's the vehicle we were told belonged to a relative that was there in the front yard when the incident occurred.
P2 would be what was identified as Deputy Rice.
That's what we were told. Yes, sir. That was the marked black Crown Victoria with the light bar on the top.
This is Lieutenant Flaxbill's truck. One,
Yes, sir.
E-1 up on the road.